My name is Marco Franke. I'm a research scientist from BIBA. Today I want to present our specific enabler. It's called SEMed. But before I go to the details of SEMed, I want to give you just a quick overview about the agenda of my presentation. First of all, I want to give you a very short overview over the capabilities of SEMed, which is his topic, his main workflow. Then I want to give you an overview according to the configuration of SEMed. And finally, I want to show you an example how you can use SEMed to retrieve data of different data sources. Okay, now I will start with the overview. SEMed is a mediator for semantic visual data integration. That means, in summary, that it's built for connecting a lot of different heterogeneous data sources. We have deployed and developed SEMed under the GPL v3 license, and at the moment, the documentation manual tutorial is online available in the Fitman catalog. And hopefully soon we will also deploy the manuals and the descriptions and the overview in the FML portal. A part of the documentation, we have uploaded the source code at SourceForge and also at GitHub. In both repositories you can add functionality or just download the source code and try it out for your own. SEMed, as I mentioned before, is a major middleware layer. It's a mediator. It provides for you a standard and de facto standard access to a wide range of data sources, your own data sources. For that, it enables a semantic visualizability for you of your data sources. And the focus of this specific enabler lies on the item level of product lifecycle data. That means you can request information for a product, for a specific version of data with a history for all your data sources. And the main capability of SEMed is that you can connect a data source to SEMed without adding interfaces, without adding implementation stuff. You have just to add a configuration, and with this configuration, you can add a data source to your IT infrastructure. That means it is a high flexible and approach which can be adapted. It's very quick, and through this it can be added to different data sources. The configuration, which I mentioned before, is based on two kinds of model. The first kind of model is an information model. That means you have to provide the information view of your data source. In this information model, you would show all concepts, all attributes, and all the relationships between the attributes and the concepts. And after you have modeled this information model, mainly as an ontology, you have to provide a transformation model, and this transformation model describes how you can transform the data of your data source into this information model. To request an information of your data source, you have just to know which concepts and which attributes you want to know. You make a query on basis of the concepts and attributes and use this query against SEMed to get all the data, which can be spread over a lot of different data sources. But you will get one result for all data sources. These are the main capabilities of SEMed. It's a mediator. It's a mediator approach with the capability of adding new data sources just by adding a new configuration, and not to implement interfaces or not to implement web service and so on and so on. Just a configuration activity. To support these capabilities, The architecture of SEMed is built on 3 layers. At the bottom, we have the linkage to the data sources. We need for each kind of data source our own wrapper. The wrapper is a component which enables the connection to a kind of data source. That means for an XML file location, we need an XML wrapper. Otherwise, for a database connection, we need a database wrapper, for example, an SQL wrapper. And if we have access to this kind of wrapper, we could connect with these 2 wrappers any kind of XML files or any kind of SQL databases. This is the bottom of our approach. At the top, we have the front end. The front end connects and offers you the query interface. The query interface requests information for you to all data sources. That means if you define a query, the query will be transformed and translated to the web service, and finally to the reasoning mediator. The reasoning mediator asks all data sources, collect all the information according to your query, and aggregate everything together, and you get just a result in your favorite tools, in your favorite front end. At the moment, SEMed supports and provides 3 different kinds of front ends. This is the QMM web service, it's the information request service, and the semantic mediator administration. But in general, through the common interface, according to our common web service, you could just add your own interface to SEMed and can provide additional functionality for your front end, or you can embed it in your application. This is the architecture. The information flow is that at the bottom we have the specific data sources. The data sources contains the data. And at the top, in our front end, we provide the results as an ODIF, OMI message, and as a table. In both cases, we represent in these representations an ontology with our results. That means that we collect all the data from the data sources, transform it into an ontology, furthermore in an A box, and this A box represent me as a table or as an ODF message. This is the general information flow through SEMed, and if you want now to connect a data source to SEMed, you have to keep the following proceeding in mind. First, you have to analyze your data source, the structures in your data source, the attributes, the relationships. Then you have to identify which information you want to extract, which information you want to provide for the extraction. You don't need to extract everything. You can just select the pieces of your data source which you want to provide for SEMed. On basis of this mental model in your mind, you can create your information model, the ontology which describes which information should be available through your data source. And finally, you create a transformation model on basis of your data source and on basis of your information model. And finally, you took the ontology file and the transformation file, the mapping file, added as a configuration to SEMed, and your data source is ready for the usage. The configuration, unfortunately, SEMed needs more than one configuration. If you want to set up SEMed, you need 3 configurations. This is the minimal configuration is for each wrapper, a configuration, and a configuration for the web service. This configuration has a dependency to the configurations of the wrappers. That means if you configure, in this example, 3 configurations, you could connect in XML files and SQL database to one SEMed configuration and could request information in both data sources. Now I want to give you a short overview how you can configure a data source, how you can make the typical steps in a sequence to create your own first configuration. The configuration is one mandatory step of SEMed to can use it, can apply it for your own data source, for your own IT infrastructure. For that reason, I want to give you a deeper understanding how SEMed works, how the configuration of SEMed works, that you can build your configuration on your own. The first step of the typical configuration is that you have a configuration file. This configuration file describes all the specific information to your data source. In the case of the SQL wrapper, for example, you need a name, a driver, a password, and the URL of your database. For an XML data source, you just need the XML file you want to provide as data source. And in both cases, for the XML data source database and the XML data source, you need the ontology file, which I mentioned before, and the transformation model as mapping file. These are the common two files which you need for every kind of data source to create your own configuration. In the next step, you have to create your ontology. The ontology, for this purpose, you define the concepts, and after you model your concepts, you define the attributes, the properties for each concept, and put everything together in the ontology language OVL, DL, and save it as an REF XML file, and then you can just put it in the configuration folder. The third step is to create the mapping. In the mapping file, you combine the ontology which you created and the data source view of the data into a mapping file. In this simplified case, you just map a property of your data source to a property of the ontology. This is the simplest case, but you can make more reasonable configurations, more complex configurations, and if you want to create joins or assign properties as the same, and so on and so on. But in a simple case, you just make a mapping from one property of your data source to one property of your ontology, collect this information in the mapping file, and finally you have created your own configuration. In summary, that means you just create these three files: the configuration file, the ontology file, and the mapping file. Put it together in a folder, and then you have to create one last additional configuration. In this configuration, you link all your data sources which you want to use in a web service, for the web service, for example, or for the information request service together. For that reason, you just make a list of all your wrapper configurations, and the wrapper configuration just contains for each wrapper the location of the configuration and the kind of wrapper which is applicable for this kind of configuration. At the moment, in the case of SEMed, we have two kinds of possible wrapper configuration. This is the SQL wrapper and the XML wrapper. Okay. Now, if you have everything configured for SEMed, it is ready to use. This is the final step, how you can use it. Now I want to show how you can generate a query. It's very simple. First, you choose the concepts which you want to know. Then you choose for each concept the properties. On basis of this kind of information, you generate a SPARQL query. A SPARQL query contains triplets, and each triplet describes for a concept a specific attribute, or to a specific attribute a constant value. After you define this kind of SPARQL query, you can use the SPARQL query to request the information. And for that purpose, you just took this SPARQL query and add it to a web service method. The web service query, you can use HTTP GET or HTTP POST to receive information. This example shows how you can just use HTTP POST to add a query. In this very easy example, you just replace this construct, your queries through this query, and you can just invoke the SEMed web service and would receive the request as a table or as a OMI-ODEF message. This is the final result. On the left side, you can see the representation of the result in ODEF, and on the right side, you see the same information requested in our own data format, which looks like a table. Okay. Now I want to just give you a very short view to a real live demo of SEMed. Hopefully you can see the visual box. This visual box is also available through the Fitman catalog. You can just go to the catalog, download the Oracle virtual image, and then can just run it, and everything is configured, and you can just try it out on your own to see how SEMed looks like. As you can see in the present in the VM, if everything works, you have 3 web applications are running. This is the MediaVeta web service, the QMM response SEMed service, and the Semantic mediator administration overview, which is not part of this demonstration, but it's the same with a graphical user interface, which you could use to make this configuration simpler. What I want to show is this is the configuration overview. With this query, you can look at your current SEMed configuration and can see which wrappers are configured, which wrappers are ready, which data sources are available for your SEMed. Then to query information, you can just call a web service method in which you can just specify your SPARQL query and add it as part of the URL of the web service, or you can just use the HTTP POST request, as I mentioned before. If you do it as a HTTP GET, you get result for example, in Firefox, in the web browser. You can see here this is a real request, information request. It's the same if you want not to get the information in our data format, but in the OMI-ODEF format, so group PLM data format, you can just use the other web service, which collects the same information, but represents the information not as a table, but in this OMI-ODEF format. Okay, this is the live demonstration that it works. Unfortunately, SEMed is a mediator. It works in the background, and hopefully, if you use it, you just get the collected data of different data sources. And if it works, it's seamless. You don't see any results if it works correctly. Okay, this is all for me.